My name's Nick, I'm a maths tutor, and today we're going to go through Edexcel GCSE Maths Paper 2H from 2021. Let's give it a go. Write down the inequality shown on this number line. So because we've got a hollow circle, it has to be greater than and not equal to, and we end up with x is greater than minus 1. On the number line below, show the inequality minus 3 is less than or equal to y, which is less than 4. So we do a shaded circle for minus 3, and we do a hollow circle for 4, and we draw a line between them, and that is our answer. Find the highest common factor, HCF, of 60 and 84. So what we do is a number tree, so we do 60 divides into 5 and 12, 12 divides into 3 and 4, and then 4 divides into 2 and 2. So we can say 60 is equal to 5 times 3 times 2 times 2. 84 divides into 7 and 12, 12 divides into 6 and 2, and 6 into 3 and 2. So we can write 84 as 7 times 3 times 2 times 2. The highest common factor is the largest number that is within both two numbers. In this case it's 3 times 2 times 2, which is 12, so 12 is our answer. Find the lowest common multiple of 24 and 40. So 24, again with the factor trees, 24 divides into 12 and 2, 12 into 2 and 6, and 6 into 3 and 2. 40 divides into 5 and 8, 8 into 4 and 2, and then 4 into 2 and 2. So we can write 24 as 3 times 2 times 2 times 2, 40 as 5 times 2 times 2 times 2, and the lowest common multiple is going to be the minimum numbers we need to get both numbers within them. So 5 is in 40, 3 is in 24, and they both have 3 2's, so we can write it as 2 cubed. Therefore we have 5 times 3 times 8, which is the same as 5 times 24, which is 120, and 120 is our final answer. Sam drives his car on a journey. Here is the travel graph for the first 15 minutes of his journey. Work out Sam's speed in kilometers per hour for the first 15 minutes of his journey. So because we have a distance time graph, we need to look at the gradients to find the speed. So speed is equal to distance over time. We have the distance of 20 kilometers travelled in the first 15 minutes, and 15 minutes is 0.25 of an hour, a quarter of an hour, okay? So we multiply the numerator and denominator by 4 to find the speed in kilometers per hour, because we've got a quarter of an hour in 15 minutes. So we do 80 over 1, which is 80 kilometers an hour, and therefore 80 kilometers an hour is our final answer. At 10:15, Sam stops for 10 minutes and then drives for 20 minutes at a speed of 75 kilometers per hour. On the grid, complete the travel graph for Sam's journey. So we know Sam stops for 10 minutes, so we can say between 10:15 and 10:25 the car is stationary, and therefore the line stays flat for those 10 minutes. Speed is equal to distance over time, and distance is equal to speed times time. So the distance is 75 kilometers per hour times 20 over 60 hours, because we know that he travels for 20 minutes at a speed of 75 kilometers per hour. 75 times a third is 25 kilometers. This means that he travels 25 kilometers in those final 20 minutes. So we can then draw this onto our graph, and we have our final answer. Complete the table of values for y equals x squared minus 2x plus 2. So I'd recommend using a table in your calculator to do this to make it quicker. Y is going to be 5 when x is minus 1, 1 when x is 1, 2 when x is 2, and 10 when x is 4. On the grid, draw the graph of y equals x squared minus 2x plus 2 for values of x from minus 2 to 4. So using the table of values we found in part A, we're going to write this down in terms of coordinates. So we have minus 2, 10, minus 1, 5, 0, 2, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 5, and 4, 10. So I'm going to plot these all on the graph below, and then I'm going to join them up using a curve. Then we need to use our graph to find estimates of the solutions of the equation x squared minus 2x plus 2 is equal to 4. So note that it says 4 here. We need to look at the values when y is 4 on our curve. So in this case, x is going to be minus 0.7 and 2.8. Here is a right-angled triangle. The shaded shape below is made from 2 of these triangles. Work out the perimeter of the shaded shape. Give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. So first and foremost, we need to look at the value x, which I've labelled on the graph here. X squared is equal to 8 squared plus 10 squared using Pythagoras' theorem. Therefore, x is the square root of 8 squared plus 10 squared, which is the square root of 164, which is 12.8 millimeters to 3 significant figures. So now that we've found x, we need to find the value of y, which is that little bit sticking on at the end beyond that 10 millimeters on the slope. So y is going to be equal to x minus 10, because x is our hypotenuse, 10 is that base length, so we're going to have that extra little bit at the end as y. That is the same as the square root of 164 minus 10, which is 2.81 millimeters to 3 significant figures. Now we need to find the perimeter. We need to add 10, 8, 8, x and y, and that gives us 41.6124 millimeters. So therefore our answer to 3 significant figures is 41.6. ABC is a right-angled triangle. Work out the length of BC. Give your answer correct to 1 decimal place. So the first thing we do is we write down SOHCAHTOA, as that's our acronym for trigonometry. Then we can label each of the sides as the adjacent, opposite or hypotenuse. So in this question, we're going to use tan because we've got the opposite we need to find and we have the adjacent. So do tan 56 is equal to opposite over adjacent, which is CB over 12. CB is equal to 12 times tan 56, which is 17.79, and therefore to one decimal place it's 17.8 centimetres. PQR is a right angled triangle. Work out the size of the angle marked X, give your answer correct to one decimal place. So same as before, we're going to look at where the opposite, adjacent and hypotenuse is, and we see that we need to use cos here because we have the adjacent and the hypotenuse, and we need to find the angle. So cos of X is going to be 15 over 18, and therefore inverse cos of 15 over 18 is going to be X. That is 33.557, so to one decimal place it's 33.6. Liquid A has a density of 1.8 grams per centimetre cubed. Liquid B has a density of 1.2 grams per centimetre cubed. 80 centimetres cubed of liquid A is mixed with 40 centimetres cubed of liquid B to make 120 centimetres cubed of liquid C. Work out the density of liquid C. So the density of A is 1.8 grams per centimetre cubed, the density of B is 1.2 grams per centimetre cubed, the volume of A is 80 centimetres cubed, the volume of B is 40 centimetres cubed, and the volume of C is 120 centimetres cubed, and this is all information we're given in the question. The density is equal to the mass over the volume, and therefore the mass is equal to the density times the volume. The mass of A is going to be the density of A times the volume of A, which is going to be 144 grams. The mass of B is going to be the density of B times the volume of B, which is 48 grams. And therefore we can find the mass of C by adding the masses of A and B together. That's going to give us 192 grams. And then we can find the density of C by doing the mass over the volume, which is 192 grams divided by 120 centimetres cubed, and we end up with 1.6 grams per centimetres cubed as our final answer. The grouped frequency table gives information about the time in minutes taken by 50 people to solve a puzzle. Brian was asked to draw a cumulative frequency table for this information. This is the table that Brian drew. Write down one thing that is wrong with this cumulative frequency table. So the bounds for the values under time should all start from 0 due to it being a cumulative frequency table and not a grouped frequency table. So they all should be starting from 0 and they're not, so that is our answer. The box plot shows information about the length of time in minutes. Some people waited to see a doctor at a hospital on Monday. Work out the interquartile range of the information in the box plot. So we need to look at the upper quartile and the lower quartile. The upper quartile is 188, the lower quartile is 50, so the difference is 138, so that is our answer. Becky says 50% of the people waited for at least 2 hours. Is Becky correct? Explain why. So the median is 120 minutes, which is 2 hours, so therefore the answer is yes, as the median is 2 hours. The table gives information about the length of time in minutes. Some people waited to see a doctor at the same hospital on Tuesday. Becky was asked to compare the distribution of the lengths of times people waited on Monday with the distribution of the lengths of times people waited on Tuesday. She wrote, people had to wait longer on Tuesday than on Monday. Give one reason why Becky may be wrong. So I had a look at the values for Monday and Tuesday and compared them, and I found the upper quartile wait time is longer on Monday than Tuesday, and that was my answer. Louise invests X pounds in better investments for 3 years. Sadiq invests X pounds in County Bank for 3 years. At the end of the 3 years, the value of Louise's investment is £344,605. Work out the value of Sadiq's investment at the end of the 3 years. We can think of X multiplying by 1.025 each year for 3 years to end up with Louise's final amount. X times 1.025 cubed, therefore, is going to be £344,605. We then divide 344,605 by 1.025 cubed to end up with 320,000 as our value of X. So if we now multiply X by 1.02, 1.02, then 1.035, because of the county bank's investment structure, we end up with 320,000 multiplied by 1.02 squared multiplied by 1.035. Therefore, that is £344,580.48, and that is our final answer. Here is a sketch of the line L. The points P minus 60 and Q03 are points on the line L. The point R is such that PQR is a straight line and PQ to QR is 2 to 3. Find the coordinates of R. So we need to look at how we get from P to Q, and we can see we go plus 6 to the right and plus 3 upwards. And then we know that the ratio of PQ to QR is 2 to 3, so the distances are going to be multiplied by 3 halves. So we do 3 times 3 halves, which is 9 halves, and 6 times 3 halves, which is 9. So to get from Q to R, we move 9 to the right and 4.5 up, and that brings us to a final point of 7.5 for R. Find an equation of the line that is perpendicular to L and passes through Q. Remember, Q is 0, 3, so L is going to be y is equal to 3 over 6 x plus 3, which is the same as a half x plus 3, because we've just done the change in y over the change in x to find the gradient. The perpendicular gradient is going to be the negative reciprocal of 1/2, which is minus 2. Therefore, y is going to be minus 2x plus 3, because remember q is 0, 3, and 3 is the y-intercept, so our answer is y is equal to minus 2x plus 3. Expand and simplify x minus 2 times 3x plus 2 times 2x plus 3. So for x minus 2 times 3x plus 2, I'm going to use the grid method, and I get 3x squared plus 2x minus 6x minus 4, and that simplifies to 3x squared minus 4x minus 4. I'm then going to multiply this by 2x plus 3, our final bracket, and we end up with 6x cubed minus 8x squared minus 8x, plus 9x squared minus 12x minus 12. This simplifies to 6x cubed plus x squared minus 20x minus 12, and that is our answer. In a school, there are 16 teachers and 220 students. Of these students, 120 are girls and 100 are boys. One teacher, one girl and one boy are going to be chosen to represent the school. Work out the number of different ways there are to choose one teacher, one girl and one boy. So we do 16, the number of teachers, times 120, the number of girls, and 100, the number of boys, and we end up with 192,000 as our final answer. A, B, C and D are 4 points on a circle. SBT is a tangent to the circle. Angle ABD is 20 degrees. The size of angle BAD to the size of angle BCD is 3 to 1. Find the size of angle SBA. Give a reason for each stage of your working. So I'm going to mark on the diagram our angle, which is SBA, as theta, and then I can think about DCB as x and BAD as 3x because of our ratio of 3 to 1. So BAD plus BCD is going to be 180 degrees because opposite angles in a cyclic quadrilateral sum to 180 degrees. Therefore 3x plus x is 180 degrees, 4x is 180 degrees, and therefore x is 45 degrees, which is BCD, and therefore BAD is going to be 135 degrees. So, since we know that BDA is the same as SBA due to the alternate segment theorem, we can just find BDA and we'll have our answer. So we can do angles in a triangle sum to 180, so you do 180 minus 135 minus 20, and that gives us 25 degrees as our angle for SBA, and therefore 25 degrees is our final answer. Here is triangle ABC. Find the length of BC, give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. So we can use the cosine rule for this, so we do a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. We then fill in all of our values and we end up with bc squared is equal to 8 squared plus 11 squared minus 2 times 8 times 11 times cos 72 degrees. This is 130.61, and then we find the square root to get bc, which is 11.4286, and therefore 11.4 to 3 significant figures. Find the area of triangle ABC, give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. So the area of a triangle is a half AB sine C. In this case, C is going to be our angle 72 degrees, and A and B are going to be 8 and 11. So we do a half times 8 times 11 times sine 72, and that is 41.846, which is 41.8 to 3 significant figures. Use the iteration formula xn plus 1 is equal to the cubed root of 10 minus 2xn to find the values of x1, x2 and x3. Start with x0 is 2. So x0 is 2, and therefore x1 is going to be the cubed root of 10 minus 2 times 2, because we're swapping xn with x0. This gives us the cubed root of 6, which is 1.817120593. Then we find x2 by filling in x1 for xn. So we get the cubed root of 10 minus 2 times 1.817, and that gives us 1.853318496. Then we find x3 by filling in x2 for the xn value, and we end up with the cubed root of 10 minus 2 times 1.853, and we end up with 1.846265953. And then I wrote my answers down as 1.8171, 1.8533, 1.8463 for x1, x2 and x3 respectively, and then I moved on. The values of x1, x2 and x3 found in part A are estimates of the solution of an equation of the form x cubed plus ax plus b equals 0, where a and b are integers. Find the value of a and the value of b. So we need to use the iteration formula we found in part A. We have xn plus 1 is equal to the cubed root of 10 minus 2xn from that. Then we're going to let x equal the cubed root of 10 minus 2x and rearrange for x cubed. So we cube both sides, get x cubed equals 10 minus 2x, and we rearrange this and we get x cubed plus 2x minus 10 equals 0, and therefore a is 2 and b is minus 10. Some people took part in the first round of a competition. The histogram gives information about the scores of these people in the first round. 20% of the people got a score high enough for them to qualify for the second round. Work out an estimate for the score needed to qualify for the second round. You must show all your working. So the first thing we're going to do is find the area of each of the bars. So we do 0.8 times 5, which is 4, 1.6 times 10, which is 16, 2.2 times 10, which is 22, and 1.2 times 15, which is 18. We add all of these up to get the total number of participants, and that is 4 plus 16 plus 22 plus 18, which is 60. And then we need to do 20% of 60, so we do 60 times 0.2, which is 12. Now, in the final section, we have 12 over 18, which is 2/3 of the way from the right-hand side. So we do 2/3 times 15, because that's the score within that final bar, and that is 10. So we go 10 from the right, and we find there's a score of 30. 40 minus 10 is 30, so therefore 30 is our final answer. Here is a graph of y equals sine x degrees. X is between 0 and 360. Using this graph, find estimates of all 4 solutions of sine x degrees is 0.6 for x between 0 and 720. So the first thing to do is read off the graph for y is 0.6, and we can see that x is going to be 36 degrees or 144 degrees. Now, because we're between 0 and 720, we need to add 360 to both values, and we get 396 and 504. If you're not sure, you can double check this with your calculator and swap x for 396 or 504. The graph of y is equal to sine x degrees and is reflected in the x-axis. Write down an equation of the reflected graph. So because it's reflected in the y-axis, we end up with y equals minus sine x degrees. Here is a graph of y equals fx. On the grid, draw the graph of y equals fx minus 2. So if we want to know what we're doing, it's a translation of 2 to the right, but if you want to double check, you do f of minus 2 equals minus 1. And then if we had to swap x with minus 2, we end up with f of minus 4, because we have minus 2, and that gives us 1. So you can see that we've moved 2 to the right to get our new graph, and if you draw that out, you get all the marks. A, B and C are 3 spheres. The volume of sphere A is 125 centimetres cubed. The volume of sphere B is 27 centimetres cubed. The ratio of the radius of sphere B to the radius of sphere C is 1 to 2. Work out the ratio of the surface area of sphere A to the surface area of sphere C. So the volume of A to the volume of B is going to be 125 to 27, which means that to get from A to B, we multiply by 27 over 125. So therefore, our volume scale factor is 27 over 125 to get from A to B. This means the length scale factor is going to be the cubed root of this equation, which leaves us with 3/5 from A to B. Therefore, we can write a ratio for all the radii. So we have RA to RB to RC. To get from RA to RB, we multiply by a length scale factor of 3/5. To get from B to C, we know in the question the ratio of the radius of sphere B to the radius of sphere C is 1 to 2, so we multiply by 2. And if we imagine the radius of A being 5, we'd get a radius of B of 3, because we multiplied by 3/5, and therefore a radius of C of 6. So we end up with our ratio of 5 to 3 to 6. Then for the surface area, we need to square all of these values. So we have 5 squared to 3 squared to 6 squared, which is 25 to 9 to 36. And therefore the ratio of the surface area of A to the surface area of C is going to be 25 to 36 as our final answer. In a village, if it rains on one day, the probability that it will rain on the next day is 0.8. If it does not rain on one day, the probability that it will rain on the next day is 0.6. A weather forecaster says there is a 7% chance that it will rain in the village on Monday. Work out an estimate for the probability that it will rain in the village on Wednesday. You must show all your working. So what I did is wrote down all of the possibilities for how it could rain across the next 3 days. We know that if it rains on the first day, the chances it will rain on the next day is 0.8, and therefore it's going to be 0.2 for it not raining, having had a day before where it did rain. So then we know that the probability it will rain after a day where it hasn't rained is 0.6, so therefore the chances of it not raining, having had a day where it hasn't rained, is 0.4, because we do 1 minus 0.6. Then we can fill out the final day using the information we just used there, and then we can look at the first day after we've done that. So we're told there's a 70% chance that it will rain on Monday, so we say there's a 0.7 chance of that happening, and therefore a 0.3 chance of it not raining on Monday. So I've labelled it Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, as you can see at the bottom, and then we can move on. So next I've highlighted all of the different options of how it could rain on Wednesday. We end up with 0.7 times 0.8 times 0.8, 0.7 times 0.2 times 0.6, 0.3 times 0.6 times 0.8, and 0.3 times 0.4 times 0.6. We write all of these as fractions, and we end up with 56 over 125 for the first one, 21 over 250 for the second one, 18 over 125 for the third one, and 9 over 125 for the fourth one. We then add all of these together because we need to know the total probability of it raining on Wednesday, and we end up with 187 over 250 as our answer, which is 0.748 as our final answer. The time period t seconds of a single pendulum of length L centimetres is given by the formula t equals 2 pi times the square root of L over g. Katie uses a simple pendulum in an experiment to find an estimate for the value of g. Here are her results. L is 52.0, correct to 3 significant figures, and t is 1.45, correct to 3 significant figures. Work out the upper bound and the lower bound for the value of g. Use pi equals 3.142. You must show all your working. So t is 2 pi times the square root of L over g, and therefore t over 2 pi is equal to the square root of L over g. t squared over 4 pi squared is going to be lg because we squared both sides, and therefore g is going to be L times 4 pi squared over t squared. And we need this because we need to find the different values of g for the upper bound and lower bound. So the upper bound of g is going to require the upper bound of L and the lower bound of t, because remember L is on the numerator and t is on the denominator. And therefore, conversely, for the lower bound of g, we're going to have the upper bound of t and the lower bound of L. So the upper bound of L is going to be 52.05. We're going to have the lower bound of t as 1.445. The upper bound of t will be 1.455, and the lower bound of L will be 51.95, because remember, all of these were rounded to 3 significant figures. So the upper bound of g is going to be 52.05 times 4 times 3.142, which is what we had as pi, squared, over 1.445 squared. This is 984.3677853, and that is our upper bound of g. The lower bound of g is going to be 51.95 times 4 times 3.142 squared over 1.455 squared, and that is 969.0181643. Therefore, our upper bound of g is going to be 984, and our lower bound of g is going to be 969, and those are our final answers. There we have it. That is paper 2H from Edexcel GCSE Maths 2021 all done. If you need any extra help with your maths, make sure to hit the link in the description, as I'll be offering online group maths tutoring classes going forward on Mondays and Tuesdays. And if you need any extra maths videos, make sure to hit the links here, and I'll see you in the next one.